Bibliography, as a discipline, is traditionally the academic study of books as physical, cultural objects. In this sense, it is also known as bibliology. Carter and Barker describe bibliography as a twofold scholarly discipline: the organized listing of books and the systematic description of books as physical objects. Branches of bibliographies. Carter and Barker describe bibliography as a twofold scholarly discipline: the organized listing of books and the systematic description of books as physical objects. These two distinct concepts and practices have separate rationales and serve differing purposes. Innovators and originators in the field include W. W. Gregg, Fredson Bowers, Philip Gaskell, Thomas Stanzel. Bowers refers to enumerative bibliography as a procedure that identifies books in specific collections or libraries in a specific discipline, find author, printer, or period of production. He refers to descriptive bibliography as the systematic description of a book as a material or physical artifact. Analytical bibliography, the cornerstone of descriptive bibliography, investigates the printing and all physical features of a book that yield evidence establishing a book's history and transmission. It is the preliminary phase of bibliographic description and provides the vocabulary, principles and techniques of analysis that descriptive bibliographers apply and on which they base the descriptive practice. Descriptive bibliographers follow specific conventions and associated classification in the description. Titles and title pages are transcribed in a quasi-facsimile style and representation. Illustration, typeface, binding, paper, and all physical elements related to identifying a book follow formulaic conventions. As Bowers established in his foundational opus, The Principles of Bibliographic Description, the thought expressed in this book expands substantively on W. W. Gregg's groundbreaking theory that argued for the adoption of formal bibliographic principles. Fundamentally, analytical bibliography is concerned with objective, physical analysis and history of a book, while descriptive bibliography employs all data that analytical bibliography furnishes and then codifies it, with a view to identifying the ideal copy or form of a book that most nearly represents the printer's initial conception and intention in printing. In addition to viewing bibliographic study as being composed of four interdependent approaches, Bowers notes two further subcategories of research, namely historical bibliography and aesthetic bibliography. Both historical bibliography, which involves the investigation of printing practices, tools, and related documents, and aesthetic bibliography, which examines the art of designing type and books, are often employed by analytical bibliographers. D.F. Mackenzie extended previous notions of bibliography as set forth by W. W. Gregg, Bowers, Gaskell and Stanzel. He describes the nature of bibliography as the discipline that studies texts as recorded forms, and the processes of their transmission, including the production and reception. This concept broadens the scope of bibliography to include non-book texts, and an accounting for the material form and structure, as well as textual variations, technical and production processes that bring socio-cultural context and effects into play. Mackenzie's perspective contextualizes textual objects or artifacts with sociological and technical factors that have an effect on production, transmission and, ultimately, ideal copy. Bibliography, generally, concerns the material conditions of books, how they are designed, edited, printed, circulated, reprinted, collected. Bibliographic works differ in the amount of detail depending on the purpose and can generally be divided into two categories: enumerative bibliography, which results in an overview of publications in a particular category, and analytical or critical bibliography, which studies the production of books. In earlier times, bibliography mostly focused on books. Now, both categories of bibliography cover works in other media including audio recordings, motion pictures and videos, graphic objects, databases, CD-ROMs and websites. Enumerative bibliography. An enumerative bibliography is a systematic list of books and other works such as journal articles. Bibliographies range from works cited lists at the end of books and articles to complete and independent publications. A notable example of a complete independent publication is Goes A. Houseman, a sketch, together with a list of his classical papers. As separate works, they may be in bound volumes such as those shown on the right, or computerized bibliographic databases. A library catalog, while not referred to as a bibliography, is bibliographic in nature. Bibliographical works are almost always considered to be tertiary sources. Enumerative bibliographies are based on a unifying principle such as creator, subject, date, topic or other characteristic. An entry in an enumerative bibliography provides the core elements of a text resource including a title, the creator, publication date and place of publication. Bellinger distinguishes an enumerative bibliography from other bibliographic forms such as descriptive bibliography, analytical bibliography, or textual bibliography, in that its function is to record and list, rather than describe a source in detail or with any reference to the source's physical nature, materiality, or textual transmission. The enumerative list may be comprehensive or selective. One noted example would be Tanzel's bibliography that exhaustively enumerates topics and sources related to all forms of bibliography. A more common and particular instance of an enumerative bibliography relates to specific sources used or considered in preparing a scholarly paper, or academic term paper. Citation styles vary. An entry for a book in a bibliography usually contains the following elements: creator, title, publisher and place of publication, date of publication. An entry for a journal or periodical article usually contains creator, article title, journal title, volume, pages, date of publication. A bibliography may be arranged by author, topic, or some other scheme. Annotated bibliographies give descriptions about how each source is useful to an author in constructing a paper or argument. These descriptions, usually a few sentences long, provide a summary of the source and describe its relevance. Reference management software may be used to keep track of references and generate bibliographies as required. Bibliographies differ from library catalogs by including only relevant items rather than all items present in a particular library. However, the catalogs of some national libraries effectively serve as national bibliographies, as the national libraries own almost all the country's publications. Descriptive bibliography. Fredson Bowers described and formulated a standardized practice of descriptive bibliography in his Principles of Bibliographical Description. Scholars to this day treat Bowers' scholarly guide as authoritative. In this classic text, Bowers describes the basic function of bibliography as sufficient data so that a reader may identify the book described, understand the printing, and recognize the precise contents. Descriptive bibliographies as scholarly product. Descriptive bibliographies as a scholarly product usually include information on the following aspect of a given book as a material object: format and collation, pagination statement, a conventional, symbolic formula that describes the book block in terms of sheets, folds, quires, signatures, and pages. According to Bowers, the format of a book is usually abbreviated in the collation formula: broadsheet, I degree a BS, or BS; folio, 2 degrees a fol; quarto, 4 degrees a fort to a Q degree a Q; octavo, 8 degrees or 8vo; duodecimo, 12 degrees or 12 mo, sextuodecimo, 16 degrees or 16 mo, trisesimo secundo, 32 degrees or 32 mo, sexagesimo quarto, 64 degrees or 64 mo. The collation, which follows the format, is the statement of the order and size of the gatherings. For example, a quarto that consists of the signed gatherings, 2 leaves signed A, 4 leaves signed B, 4 leaves signed C, and 2 leaves signed D would be represented in the collation formula. 4 degrees A2 BC4 D2 binding, a description of the binding techniques. Title page transcription, a transcription of the title page, including rule lines and ornaments. Contents, a listing of the contents in the book. Paper, a description of the physical properties of the paper, including production process, an account of chain line measurements, and a description of watermarks. Illustrations, a description of the illustrations found in the book, including printing process, measurements, and locations in the text. Presswork, miscellaneous details gleaned from the text about its production. Copies examined, are an enumeration of the copies examined, including those copies' location. Analytical bibliography. This branch of the bibliographic discipline examines the material features of a textual artifact, such as type, ink, paper, imposition, format, impressions and states of a book, to essentially recreate the conditions of its production. Analytical bibliography often uses collateral evidence, such as general printing practices, trends in format, responses and non-responses to design, etc., to scrutinize the historical conventions and influences underlying the physical appearance of a text. The bibliography utilizes knowledge gained from the investigation of physical evidence in the form of a descriptive bibliography or textual bibliography. Descriptive bibliography is the close examination and cataloging of a text as a physical object, recording its size, a format, binding, and so on, while textual bibliography identifies variations, and the etiology of variations, in a text with a view to determining the establishment of the most correct form of text. Etymology. The word bibliographia was used by Greek writers in the first 3 centuries AD to mean the copying of books by hand. In the 12th century, the word started being used for the intellectual activity of composing books. The 17th century then saw the emergence of the modern meaning, that of description of books. Currently, the field of bibliography has expanded to include studies that consider the book as a material object. Non-book material. Systematic lists of media other than books can be referred to with terms formed analogously to bibliography, discography, recorded music, filmography, films, webography, websites. Arachneography is a term coined by NASA research historian Andrew J. Butrica, which means a reference list of URLs about a particular subject. It is equivalent to a bibliography in a book. The name derives from arachne in reference to a spider and its web. Bibliography as a field of study. Bibliography is a specialized aspect of library science and documentation science. The founder of documentation, Paul Otlet, wrote about the science of bibliography. However, there have recently been voices claiming that the bibliographical paradigm is obsolete, and it is not today common in lists. A defense of the bibliographical paradigm was provided by Hewlin. The quantitative study of bibliographies is known as bibliometrics, which is today an influential subfield in lists.